Hello everyone, I am Christina Ilds with American Military University. Today I'm presenting and thanks for all the fish to EVSP508 Environmental Ethics, Summer Session D001, 2020. I decided to review a few of the regulations that protect fish species in the U.S. I personally work with 3 of these laws on a daily basis and the agencies that administer them, so the subject was of interest to me and very applicable to my vocation. We'll be discussing the underlying worldviews of the Endangered Species Act, the Magnuson-Stevens Fisheries Conservation Act, the Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act, and the American Fisheries Act. The Endangered Species Act was enacted in 1973 and is administered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and what is now known as NOAA Fisheries, but is also commonly referred to as NMFS from their original title of the National Marine Fisheries Service. The Magnuson-Stevens Fisheries Conservation Act was enacted in 1976 and is administered by NMFS. The Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act was enacted in 1958 and is technically administered by all federal agencies, but it mandates coordination with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NMFS on any water resource development projects. The American Fisheries Act was enacted in 1998 and is administered by NMFS. All these regulations are associated with one another in many ways, and agency environmental compliance review and permitting frequently requires coordination under more than one of these laws on each project. All 4 of these regulations are anthropocentric and can fall under the shallow ecology worldview. The main goal of the regulations is to combat the depletion of resources. The target is beneficiary to people, and it's more of a question of what can we get out of the environment, and it benefits our survival, the economy, and or personal gain and enjoyment. They also do come from an ecological standpoint, using science and research to determine how to increase populations, repair or increase the needs of the species, such as habitat, and it also dictates how to improve the processes or determine future adjustments to the policy, all of which impact the resource availability. Once again, supporting the shallow ecology worldview to combat the depletion of resources. If it's a little confusing as to why regulations that seem to be so beneficial to fish aren't more concerned about the fish themselves, I'd like to remind you that NMFS is a branch under the Department of Commerce. The main goal is conservation of fish populations for economic purposes for fishery sustainability. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife's main goal is conservation of fish and wildlife resources for public use, such as hunting, fishing, and recreation. A brief overview of how the shallow ecology worldview applies to the Endangered Species Act, the Magnuson-Stevens Fisheries Conservation Act, the Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act, and the American Fisheries Act. Thank you for your time.